Well, hi there. All right, so here's today's problem that needs to be solved. I live in a rather cold part of the United States, and I'm building this pole shed, and it's time to insulate this thing. And I've been all across the internet looking for, how do you insulate a pole shed in northern climates? And the people that know, they aren't making videos on YouTube. And the people that are making videos on YouTube, they're not really for my climate, right? And they're doing thinner insulation or maybe different ways to insulate their pole shed that didn't really align with how I wanted to do it or how I built my building. So, making this video for people like me that live in northern parts of, well, shoot, I'm in the United States, but this would work for Canada or any other northern climate, and are pretty particular about how it gets done. I want this building to be as efficient as possible, but I also don't want to break the bank. So I'm going to show you how I'm doing it, and I'm sure that the people that really know will have some good things to say down in the comments. So make sure you check out the comments, because I bet you that's where the gold's going to be and where the real opinions will come out. So between what I say and what's down in the comments, you'll probably have a pretty good approach for insulating your pole shed. So without further ado, we'll get into it. We'll start off with the tour. This is just a bare wall here. So gabled end, I think I'm about 10 feet between posts here. And that's just the girts on the outside. I had it built this way because I want to fill that entire bay full of insulation. And I didn't do the bookshelf girts because I didn't want those thermal breaks everywhere. So to demonstrate what my plan is here, I'm doing Rockwool, right, the mineral fiber insulation on the bottom section here. That's because any sort of moisture that gets into the bottom part of the wall, and in a pole shed, that can happen for a lot of different reasons. It can come from the outside, it can come across the slab, it can get on there. I decided I wanted to use that Rockwool because it's hydrophobic, and if it gets wet, it's not going to mold. It'll just sit there and it'll dry back out eventually. It seemed like that would cause a lot less problems than just running the fiberglass all the way down to the ground. And spray foam is just way expensive, and that wasn't really in my budget. And plus, I live in the woods, so when the wind blows, I hear the wind blowing through the treetops, but I don't really feel the wind down here because all these trees do a great job of blocking it. Hey, look at that's a nice sunset over there. So I don't really need the protection that you would get with spray foam to stop all that infiltration. So that's not really a concern of mine because I got woods. So we're back here to the wall. I got my mineral insulation on the bottom there, the Rockwool, and then I'm just doing my insulation up the wall. And then the secret sauce here is how I'm securing it up top. Turns out there's a lot of different ways that you can secure your insulation up top, and that's where I really looked at all my different options, and I settled on what I think is going to work best for me. So I'll show you how I did that. All right, it all starts with these cool washers that I got from hardware store. You look at these things. They're just these plastic washers here. And then I can take a, 1.5-inch screw and stick her in there. See if I can do that. And that right there is all I need. I put 5 of these across the top of that 4-foot wide bat of insulation, and that does a great job of holding it in there. And then you're gonna say, but that compresses your insulation up top. What about your R value? And I'll show you that in a bit. So I'm using this Thermofiber Owens Corning. It's an R23. And yeah, if you read everything about this, it's, of course, spray foam is the best thing. But it's pretty darn good in environments where it could possibly get damp. So that's why I chose it. And it's pretty easy to cut. This is a piece that I had to cut some other things around. I just have a serrated knife, and I cut it to whatever size shape I need, and a piece of cake. So I'll show you how I do the bottom part. It's not that hard. Okay, the trick I learned is you don't really need to measure anything. You just do stuff. So, something like that's not going anywhere. So I got this bracing here, and the way that it's attached to the post, I'm only gonna have like 4 inches of insulation on this side of the bracing. So I'm gonna go ahead, what I've done all the other places, is I take my fiberglass and I tear it, separate the pleats, separate it, and I just fill some in behind. That way, and I overhang, 6 inches or so on either side. That way I can increase the R value. This is not rocket science, putting up insulation, but I will say you have to keep in mind the sum of your errors, because you can screw up a little here and it's no big deal. But if you screw up a little here and a little here and a little here and a little here, next thing you know, you got a whole lot of heat leaking out of your building. So you don't have to get super carried away with getting everything perfect, but you have to be aware of how many imperfections you have. So in general, it's a good idea to care and pay attention to what you're doing. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and insulate behind these braces. That way, right, it's just one less error that compounds throughout the entire building. And I don't want to get preachy, but it's a good idea to wear some sort of a mask when you do this. Every now and then, if I feel like I'm too cool for wearing something like this, and I'm working with fiberglass, whether it's in the attic or it's doing something like this, it only takes about 5 minutes, and then I start coughing. And it happens every time I don't wear a mask. So you'd think I'd learn, but anyway, turns out I'm not too cool. I can wear this, so it's always a good idea. Have I mentioned it's cold out here? It's about 15 degrees, I think. Someday I'll have heat. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but basically, I'm just gonna tuck this thing in here, like this. Push it over this way as best I can. And then just use the wood as a guide. And I'm just gonna guess, it looks like 1.5 inches. Save this in case I need it. And there, just like that. It's beautiful. Today's mission is to not get my hat stuck in my drill. If I told you it's cold out here, all right, before I go up, I'm gonna put this on the bottom here. Ooh, I hope that's long enough. Because this is gonna make cutting off the bottom a whole lot easier. And I'll show you what I mean here in just a little bit. But step 1, right, remember to keep the hat out of the drill. About there. It's not rocket science. Okay, that's that. Because I don't like coughing.
This is important. You'll see in a bit. There you go. This is easier. That should be good enough for what we're doing. Okay. So I got it spread out so it's easier to lift up. Right? This is how I hold it up temporarily, and it helps for lifting the whole thing so I don't rip it. There. Whew. But that's done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Oh, and I take this off. We're good to go. And then the reason I put that board there is so that it makes it easy to cut. So I'm going to go down, I don't know, a couple inches. It's not rocket science, but you definitely want to give it plenty of extra so that it's a good tight fit. So anyway, I'm just going to pick a spot, and I've got my fingers on the top of the board and the bottom of the board just to make sure I know where I am, because I can't see anything. Kind of just going kind of in the middle of what I grabbed there. And I got that, put that away, tuck that over there, and then we'll just tuck. Now I'll use a long screw just to kind of get everything exactly how I want it. I found if I use my fingers, I was pushing it in more and more, but the long screw, it kind of grabs onto it and I can get it exactly how I want it. Alright, so this is what it looks like up top. I got my screws, my washers. Well, I got some crazy hair there. So anyway, into the corner, so it's good and secure. Alright, we'll do this again. I think these are 38-foot rolls. Yeah, 37, 38-foot rolls. So, and these are 14-foot sidewalls. So I can go top to bottom 3 times and then have a little bit left over. And I've been using the little bit left over for things like going around the windows and all. So I always start a fresh roll going top to bottom, because I don't want to have to deal with splicing and stuff. That's how we like it.
Now I know what you're saying. You're saying, but look at, you compressed your insulation up at the top and you don't have any R value up there. And I know, but I'm saving that for later because that's important.
All right, I'm going to do the same thing again, except this time I'm going to line up this edge with that edge, give myself maybe an inch or so overlap so I get good smush, no air gaps between them. But it's going to run long over this post. But that's fine, because I can just use that post to cut it It should be good. I'll use the same technique on the post that I did there. So, this may look a little precarious, but I like to do this more than cutting it on the ground. Because I don't know, it seems like every time I cut it on the ground I get it wrong. I'm more apt to get it right if I just do it up like this. I like that. I like that a lot. Reckless. In general, I like to cut less and maybe have to cut twice, then cut more and have regrets. So I'm going to go with right about there. Kind of on the corner. That looks great.
About now is when you're going to want to head down and look in the comments, because this is probably where the people that really know what they're doing, maybe the people that do this for their living, have gone in there and put all kinds of wonderful, wise ponderings in there. That's the real trick to this video, is just going to draw all of them out. And so you may not necessarily get good things from me, but down in the comments, that's where the true tutorial is going to be at. So anyway, just pause for a bit. You can go check that out and come back when you're done. All right, now that I got this bay done, I am going to skip ahead and show you how the details end up. Maybe I'll do it over there. I'll show you the detail there and there. And then you can stop watching if you want. All right, because it's just work from here. Okay, so here's what I like about this, right? You can see, imagine someday I'm going to have a ceiling that comes in and ties in to this top girt here. And it's going to come in, well, shoot, right along the bottom of the trusses there. And it's going to tie in the ceiling right here. So I'm going to blow in fiberglass insulation up into the attic space. And I got these baffles up here, so I can just go ahead and fill this as much as I want. And it's all going to go down and fill in this space that I made because this insulation is all compressed. And you can see down here, I'm nice and flush with the wall because this is going to be my outside girts and everything. And as it comes in, step down a step here, it tucks in and it has this big space up there all the way up. So this is just going to fill in with insulation from the attic. And I just got to make sure I get my hose over here and I fill this in good, fill it up. It'll fill down here and I will have a nice continuous R value all the way up and around, and no thermal breaks or nothing. One more thing I want to point out is that if you feel comfortable doing this yourself, but you don't really know how you should do it, I really recommend checking out your local building codes, because you can buy like the residential building code for, you know, homes and stuff like that on Amazon, and I don't know, maybe it's $100. Worst case, maybe it's $200. But if it keeps you from wasting a handful of 2x4s and 2x6s, then it's money well spent. Code books, for me, code books are basically like your cookbook, your recipe for how to do things. So in my area, my building code for residential, it says that insulation needs to be mechanically fastened, right? Mechanically fastened, whatever that means. So I actually called up the insulation manufacturer just for fun to see what they recommended for mechanically fastened. And wouldn't you know, they weren't going to commit to anything one way or the other. I ran this by them and they're like, sure, that'll work. So anyway, that's my little tip. If you don't know what you're doing, check out the building codes. A lot of states you can just download them from the state website. Other states you might have to go and actually buy a copy of them. But pro tip. Well, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching the video. Like I say, when I originally was trying to figure out how I wanted to insulate my building here, I didn't really find any resources on the internet for, you know, how this was framed up and how I wanted to do the insulation. So now there is, and I hope that it helps somebody out. It gives them some answers and some options for how to insulate their pole shed in a northern climate. And absolutely check out those comments, because my theory is there's some people who really know how to do this, and they've gone down there and said a thing or two. So check those out. So between me making stuff up and those people typing things out, I think you should have some good resources available now. All right, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.